Okay, hello everybody, welcome to Historian Stitch. It is Wednesday and we are cooking. And if you saw on Facebook, and obviously we are inside, it's a little too cold outside, and until halfway through this process, I didn't know that we actually had the correct utensils. So I could have been outside, but we are still inside instead because I popped popcorn. I went running to the store and got actual kernel popcorn, so that was an adventure in and of itself. I had never done that before, so it's been fun. Um, so what we are making first with our popcorn is popcorn balls. And basically, popcorn balls are super easy. You just have popped popcorn, preferably unbuttered, actually. Um, Everything kind of sticks to it a little bit better, and you are going to candy it with what we are using is honey, a little bit of butter, some salt, and vanilla. That is how we are making our popcorn balls, but according to this particular book, it is the Victoria's Home Companion, or the whole art of cooking, a history of 19th century foods with recipes. Um, we are going off of this book as to how we are making popcorn balls, and they say to boil honey, maple, or other sugar, often sorghum or molasses, to the great thread. I'm not quite sure exactly what the great thread means, but now that we've gotten the popcorn done, I started boiling my mixture, and it's starting to thicken up again. Candying things isn't necessarily my strong suit. I probably need to boil it a little longer, and once that is done, then we will pour it over the popcorn and make balls. So one thing we discussed a little bit ago and have already noticed is modern honey isn't very thick at all. Eventually it will candy and harden, but it takes a while. And it's been purified a few too many times. So that is going to be problematic for this recipe in particular, at least. Sorry. But while we are making the things that we are making today, because we are making this and then either ginger snaps or are they molasses drop balls or drop cakes? I think they're drop cakes. Molasses drop cakes. Eventually I will be making both, but one of those two we will also be making with this video. And both of them are very Christmassy for the most part. But in the process of making all of this for 19th century Christmas foods, we will also be talking a little bit about Victorian 19th century Christmas traditions, mainly in the ways of Christmas trees, sugar trees. Technically, Christmas trees themselves are a very German thing. Most people don't know that, but they are a German tradition that came originally not as a whole tree, but as branches of a tree. Oh, we're starting again. One problem with how I've done it here is it's not just the honey, it's the honey that's in it. Is not just honey, it is the butter in it as well. I've made it a little bit thinner than it probably should be because I didn't measure out how much butter or vanilla I put in. I just chucked it in there. So, with that, I'm going to move the camera over here where you all can see a little bit better. And we will start pulling out the stuff for going to go with ginger snaps on this one. We are going to do the ginger snaps. Ginger snap candies. Because with that one, I can set the oven to a quick oven temperature and we will go from there. So we hit pause, move you around, and we will see where the rest of this adventure goes. Alright, we have moved the camera, obviously. Um, that is going to take a long while and a lot of watching to turning down the heat might be helpful too, just to get it to not boil over so fast. That's going to sit and boil and do its thing for a while, and we are going to start on the ginger snaps. Now, something that might not be common for all people to hear is I said we are using a quick oven earlier, and a quick oven in the 19th century, you have a slow, a medium, a fast, or a very fast oven, all of which aren't determined by how long it takes for something to cook in said oven, but rather by how fast you pull your arm and or hand away from your Dutch oven or bake oven. Sounds kind of dangerous. It is kind of dangerous. If you go to the Frontier Cultural Museum, they can tell you as much when they make pies. Stop it. Getting bigger rather than thinning down. So our quick oven that we need based on the Victoria's Home Companion, we are gauging based on this book of Civil War recipes, receipts from the pages of Godey's Lady's book. A lot of these are written during the Civil War, but something that is really useful is they actually tell you what the equivalent of measurements would be. So, like a teacup of flour would be about a cup of flour. Where in the case of oven temperatures, you have the very low, low, moderate, hot oven, very hot, extremely hot. We are going with the very hot oven for our quick oven, so that'll be about 450 to 475. I'm thinking 450 will be easier since our ginger snaps aren't the cookies. They are more of a taffy, hard candy kind of thing. So we are going to do that first. There we go. Now, the nice thing about how we're doing it here in the modern kitchen instead of outside is how we are doing it in here. We don't have to start a fire and get it going and get it hot enough that we have coals to then heat up our Dutch oven and go from there, because that entire process takes forever, honestly. I would have had to have started my fire at about 12 o'clock. And long before that, honestly, to get the amount of popcorn I have popped, because popping popcorn, as I have now heard many stories about this morning, is a process in and of itself, and kind of goes, yeah, this is an adventure, to say the least. So I don't have to worry about any of that. We are inside. I can actually walk around in a tank top in here, which is kind of nice because it's already really hot. That and Puppy can stay in here, and I don't have to worry about what she is or isn't chewing on. So,
with that, I'm going to pull everything out and go from there. So what we are making next, well, I took this off the heat. It is still very hot but cooling now, so that maybe it will string the way it's supposed to, and then it can go on the popcorn. But we are doing the ginger snaps next, and I'm going to half this sucker because I don't know what they taste like. It looks good, but I'm also guessing as to how to make it because all it says is 2 cups of molasses, a cup of sugar, 1 of butter, 3 teaspoons of ginger, and 2 of soda. Roll very thin and bake. So we're going to cook it. We're going to see if that's how this is supposed to go.
Alright, so as I said at the beginning of the video, we are kind of going over a little bit of the Christmas tree stuff. And basically, as I am busily making the ginger snaps and pulling everything out and together and hopefully doing it right, but that's not exactly how that ended. Christmas trees themselves, I talked about a little bit of where they came from, which is Germany, and how they started out not as full trees, but as tree branches instead. They weren't called Christmas trees at the time either. They were rather called sugar trees. Um, Sugar trees got their name because you were putting the sweets like what we made today in the tree, on the tree, around said tree. You would also be putting gingerbreads and sugar cookies. And basically, instead of stuffing socks and stockings with presents, your present for the year was lots and lots of sugar. This is a time period when sugar is really expensive, which is why we used honey instead of sugar itself, or sorghum, or molasses. Honey is something that you can easily obtain from your local store or local beekeeper. Whereas everything else was rather expensive. So once a year being Christmas is when you're really eating a lot of sugar, especially little kids. And that is what Santa Claus was bringing, because on Christmas Eve is when you're decorating your tree with the cranberries and candles and popcorn and all of this really pretty strings of stuff, ribbon, tinsel, things like that. And then you'd wake up the next morning and there's sugar all over it. So that's kind of where Christmas trees got or sugar trees got their name, and then it progressed into a Christmas tree instead, though sugar trees were also called Christmas trees. It wasn't until the 1850s, though, that Christmas trees in particular became popular, where you have some that are really small and like tabletop size, about like maybe a foot and a half tall, to ones that might be 3 feet tall. For the most part, they were fairly small, but the bigger the tree, the easier it could hold candles, which, from today's perspective, is a bit dangerous considering trees are flammable. But at this point, it's not that big of a concern considering you have candles lighting your house, you have oil lamps, you're cooking over fires, everything is centered around fires. So putting candles in the tree wasn't that big of a problem. It wasn't until the first light bulbs were created, and a few years after that, when somebody went, hey, we could put these on a string and hang them in the tree and not catch it on fire as easy. So, there's a bit of history about the Christmas tree itself and lighting it. That was a bit of a tangent. And we are about to go back into the making of popcorn balls at this point, because the the ginger snaps burned, and it's a problem.
I feel like a cat. I keep dipping my hands over on this side because it's cold water and the honey doesn't want to stick to water of any kind, much less cold. So that's how we keep the popcorn balls themselves from sticking too terribly. We have popcorn balls. And basically, what you would go with from here is either taking twine or ribbon and wrapping around it as a kind of square knot. So, one on four sides, ribbon on all four sides. And that is how you would hang it from your tree. And because of how loose these are and wanting to fall apart, this is why you decorated your tree the day before rather than almost a month and a half like we do today. So, with that, I'm going to turn this particular part off and I will come back later with a how everything finished. Alright, so we are outside now that I have cleaned up the kitchen and my most entertaining mess. Now I know not to cook the ginger snaps and then bake them. At least not for near as long as I did. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to get to a soft crackle and or a hard crackle stage and then you lay it out and let it cool rather than mixing it all together in a solid form, rolling it flat with a rolling pin, and then baking it so that it melts together. I'm probably going to try it again in both ways and see which way actually comes out better. But I also didn't know the difference in the threading and softball and hardball and all of that. So now I know. The popcorn balls, however, are really, really good. No, you all will not see all of the mess that we did. I'm going to speed up. Well, obviously, if you have gotten to this point in the video, you've seen where I've sped up and done voiceover and everything for it. You get to see the finished product. I'm just sitting here in the middle of it going, oh dear lord, what happened? Which, speaking of which, there is definitely a dear lord what happened point with the basically brittle, the ginger brittle we did for the ginger snaps. And as I have kept rewatching it for the beginning stage of editing, we will likely have a blooper reel for New Year's, just with all of the chaos that comes through on my videos, especially this one because of how long it was. I will be making the molasses drop cakes probably tomorrow. I'm actually going to start a fire and do those properly instead of just the throw it in the oven and see what happens. I want to actually use the Dutch oven for those and the tin cookware that we have, because Dutch oven we have like 5 of. So definitely doing that. I might do a quick video on it tomorrow, just for something for Thursday. And then there will be Fridays. And Friday, we are doing a Fashion Friday again, and we are going over corsetry again, except a very different variation than what the first corset video I did was. Yes, they can be uncomfortable, but usually they're not if they are made properly and you wear them through that stage of uncomfortableness. So, we will be talking about corsets and how I've dealt with mine and how mine feels overall, because I love mine. I wear it a lot. So yeah, that will be what we're doing on Friday. I will come up with some variation of video for next Wednesday. Not sure what we're doing yet. And correction, I know what we're doing next Wednesday. We will have a Christmas tree set up in our living room probably by that point. That, or we will be putting strung popcorn on a sugar tree, because I think I've almost convinced Mom to do a sugar tree this year. So, that'll be fun. I can talk a little bit more about that and why they did it. That, or we might just go over a few more Christmas traditions and where they came from and why, because thank you, Frontier. I got to be there just long enough to learn about Christmas and everything, and then COVID hit and chaos started. So, probably a lot of information from them. Just we're going to focus more on the 19th century end of it. So, with that, I will go on and continue editing and probably laughing at myself because there are some interesting points. And I will see you all on either tomorrow or Friday. So, everybody have a good day.